Hey folks, this is Joe Rule with the Bold Visions podcast, where I interview founders and marketers about how to tell better stories about tech. Show notes and links for this episode can be found at raconteuranimation.com/podcast. Today on the show, I spoke with Jillian Childs, the VP of Marketing at Turntide Technologies, which is a green tech company leading the electrification of transportation, or as they say it, all things that move. With their axial flux motors and other electronics products. Jillian's career spans top-tier innovative and sustainability companies like Tesla, for example, in addition to Turntide. Her expertise lies in blending luxury marketing techniques with startup agility to ensure brands not only capture attention, but also foster lasting customer loyalty. If I had to sum up Jillian's message in this episode in one sentence, it would be just connect with more people. I had lots of questions for her about channels and strategies and impact and positioning and AI and video and about being a solo marketer as well. And she always directed it back to communicate and connect and listen better to your teammates and to customers, which I think is really fitting for when this episode was recorded in 2024 and just all of the things happening right now in marketing and in the economy and the world in general. There are a lot of gems in this episode for anyone building or marketing a B2B industrial or tech company. Be sure to check out the show notes down below and check out some of those links as well. A few topics we discussed included building a customer-centric brand using luxury brand tactics in industrial B2B, the Turntide social media and video strategy, and how to be effective as a one-person marketing team. Of course, we had to touch on all things AI and the different tools that she uses there. So thanks so much for tuning in to listen, and grab a sandwich or a drink or whatever you do when you listen to a podcast. I hope you enjoy this dive into B2B marketing with Jillian Childs. Hey, Jillian. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey,
appreciate you being here.
Hey, Joe. It's really nice to be on the show. Thank you for the invitation.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad that we can do this and chat. I'm excited to learn more about your world. And we actually connected on LinkedIn. You post pretty frequently, and I thought you're talking about some really interesting things around marketing and your background at Tesla and that kind of thing, and where your industry is one that my company works with in this kind of industrial tech stuff. So I wondered if we could start there. Tell me about Turntide. What brought you there? What are you guys doing? And ultimately, you're heading up their marketing for them. So where are you going? What's the future look like?
Yeah, all great questions. So I'll start with kind of my journey to Turntide. So ever since I was at Tesla, I really loved startup cultures and I liked mission-driven organizations. I found that those were two things that I wanted in terms of a culture in any career moving forward. And it happened to be that Turntide was a blend of a lot of different previous career mixes that I've had. So on the transport electrification side, we know Tesla. On real estate and like HVAC systems, I used to work for Sotheby's International Realty very early on in my career. And then on the agriculture piece, because we also have an agriculture arm, I was working for Indigo Ag right before I Turntide throughout the pandemic. So having the culmination of where we had three different domain expertise areas, we went into separate BUs, and then ultimately Turntide, as I met everybody during the interview process, the people there were just so amazing. The people at Turntide are incredible, and the culture was just something that I really wanted to be part of, lean in and make a difference. And so it's been almost 3 years, and it's been a really exciting ride thus far. And where we've been and where we've been heading. So we're much more focused on the electrification of industrial manufacturing vehicles right now. Think tier one OEMs, and we sell electrification components into those manufacturers, whether it's on off-highway, on-highway, marine, rail. Those are all industries that we serve. And so I would say as we've gone through an iteration of an organization, we've realized that's really our North Star as an organization. So as I look to our marketing, how to build that brand awareness over the course of the next couple of years and really making sure that our revenue goals are met, it's a matter of understanding that that is our North Star now. And how do we pivot and reposition the company that was really actually founded on the SRM motor and focused on HVAC systems and how we retrofit HVAC systems with our SRM motor. It's now leaning heavily into axial flux motors, power electronics, energy storage. And so we've seen kind of the pivot and our North Star going into more of the electrification side, which is exciting for me given my Tesla experience.
Wow, that's really interesting. You said you were headed from HVAC to EVs and what other forms of transportation and
Yeah, so
electrification?
you think about off-highway vehicles, so forklifts, diggers, AGVs from a robotic standpoint. We also handle high-speed rail. We handle marine. So if you're looking to
Okay.
electrify center consoles, that's something that we're also developing. We sell the electrification components that these manufacturers need in order to meet their goals.
Okay. Gotcha. So what does that look like on your end? Like to me, from an outsider, that's a massive pivot, and especially for a company of Turntide size. How are you adapting to that as far as marketing, and what does that look like for
Yeah,
you?
so over the course of the last couple of years, it is a huge pivot. So I think in the last 6 months, we've really had to focus on what the repositioning looks like from our brand perspective and say, hey, this is where we're headed now, and we're doubling down and where we've seen the most profitability. And that is going to continue to be our North Star. And from a marketing standpoint, it's working on that repositioning. What is our new messaging pillars? What are our differentiators in that market? And how do we become much more customer centric than we have? I wouldn't say that we haven't been, but I would say if you looked at our website maybe 5 months ago, it was definitely more investor focused. We've then completely repositioned that. We are focused directly on our customers and making sure their needs are met 1,000% over. That's where you'll see the biggest repositioning is making sure that customers are first and foremost, and that we are leaning into making sure that that customer experience is exceptional from day one through the engineering process through actually getting your components in whatever vehicles you're designing.
So, oh, so many, so many questions.
I know it's a lot.
You were saying, yeah, pivoting into or becoming more customer
Mhm.
centric. Something I've observed in kind of the industrial world, because I've been digging into that more in the last year or so, is that it seems to be very heavily account based marketing, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term. So I'm curious, like, what's that look like for you guys? How are you nurturing these connections and maintaining these relationships with customers? What are the touch points that you're
Yes.
leveraging?
So that is a great question. So, and I agree with you, account based marketing has been first and foremost on the B2B front. I look at this as a different approach, and I challenge the concepts of a lot of different marketing tactics just based on my experience within luxury marketing and Tesla and a lot of different other startups. I try to look at any marketing challenge as an opportunity, but also not with asking for huge budgets. I try to be really efficient and maximize our existing channels. What that means to me is like, what is our customer experiencing when they go through a UX experience on our website? Are they getting the technical data they need? Are they getting what we're selling right up front? Do they understand what our company serves and provides for the customer? So, really maximizing all touch points on the website, making sure that the customer can look and find anything that they need. So, we'll go through more iterations since we just launched last month and we're building out more and more details to add to the website as we speak. Then I look at our social channels. What are we doing from a social front? How are we engaging any of our potential prospects from a LinkedIn perspective? Facebook. Sometimes we'll dabble in X, formerly known as Twitter. Um, and then we have a lot of new social videos that we've just developed, and those are all available on YouTube right now. So really diving into why Turntide, what's our differentiators, specific details about our products and what they mean to you. So I would say it's more about maximizing the channels that we have right now rather than putting more budget towards something that will eventually be, I've never found account-based marketing to not be a very expensive cost. I think there's little things that you can do, but typically you're looking at hiring outside agencies. There's a lot of different marketing plays that need to go into that. You need marketing analytics to all come together. And as a one-person team, my goal right now is to maximize our existing channels and make sure that they are firing in all fronts. And then enabling our sales team with all of the details that they need to properly sell to customers and build that. Our kind of bread and butter is industry trade shows and making sure that people can find us at those trade shows, whether it's a niche market that we're going. So like IVT Expo is one that will be in Cologne in 2 weeks. And then we'll do that in North America where it's very, very component focused. And you have the people that are purchasing components and the engineers come and find us out, or we'll go to some of the larger industry trade shows. But I would say those are kind of the first touch points, whether it's through the website, whether it's through social, or whether it's through a trade show, and then how we nurture those people along through email, additionally through potentially digital marketing and all of those sorts of things.
Well, I am especially curious because this is a question or it's something I'm seeing other people in the space dive into, is that they're starting to get into video. They're starting to build up their social channels and to augment the trade shows essentially. And so and you guys have actually done quite a bit on that front in building up that material. So I'm curious, what are your goals in that, and how does that fit with kind of the bigger picture?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If you've noticed, Turntide Social has kind of really increased over the last, I would say, 6 weeks since we launched the new website. That was done purposefully. I didn't want necessarily to blast everything on LinkedIn or social and then have people go to a website that wasn't speaking the core customer language at that point. So you will find that social has increased the minute we launched the new website in early May. In terms of social, so we just worked with an agency out of the UK to develop some videos for us. I think the videos perform very, very strongly across all platforms. They also, I think videos in general can be used in types of different content. You can take smaller snippets, you can put larger clips together, you can use them on the website, you can use them on social. So I'm always looking at whatever content we're developing, how do we amplify that and use that across existing channels or even new channels? But how do we get the most bang for our buck in terms of the marketing content that we're developing? The biggest focus on our social approach right now is building the education around what we sell and the products we sell and our expertise and the location. So you'll see a lot of different videos about featuring engineers that coming from our UK headquarters on the transport division. And then we'll dive into specific products and the manufacturing capabilities and what those differentiators are. And I think one of the big pieces that I've learned along the way attending a social media conference was that you don't need to create new content all of the time. It's a matter of repeating that content. So I kind of look at social right now as how do we use this as sort of like a paid advertising, but we're not doing paid advertising. It's more so how are we amplifying our message with the exact same message, maybe tweaked a little bit here and there, but it's constantly getting you in front of the same message. Similar to if you're watching a TV commercial and you're oh, now I finally get it. I've seen this PNC ad 20,000 times. I'm finally going to go open a checking account down the street. I kind of look at social the same way. You don't need to constantly have new content. You just need to have that same repeating message of what are we educating the customers with? What are the products we're selling? And why are we differentiating ourselves from anybody else in the marketplace? And why should they purchase from us?
Gotcha. Would you say that's top of the funnel?
Yes, I would say that's very much top of the funnel. It's interesting. I think in the manufacturing side, a lot of the work is top of the funnel to get the awareness out there, especially I think people we have years of expertise on our side with different companies that we've acquired, yet we are a startup, right? And still the space considered the startup, but we have the brand heritage from different organizations and the expertise within our organization coming from those legacy brands. So you're not taking the same risk that you would with a brand new startup that has no idea what they're doing in the electrification space. Like, we do have that brand heritage and legacy and expertise with everybody within our teams. These engineers have over 60 years of experience combined. We can be that electrification ally for manufacturers.
So, to kind of speaking to another company who's in the manufacturing space and who's wanting to leverage social media like you have and video, what channels would you suggest they start with? Like, where are you connecting with these people best?
I think LinkedIn is the best tool that I have found right now, mainly because the whole idea and algorithm behind LinkedIn is education. Like, how are you educating your audiences? And LinkedIn rewards you for the education materials. So rather than having a very, very salesy approach to what we're selling and putting numbers and pricing out there, it's more so like understanding what product features and benefits that this is giving to the end customer or our partner in some ways, and using LinkedIn as kind of I would start with LinkedIn from a B2B perspective over any other social channel. B2C is a whole different ballgame, but LinkedIn is my go-to for B2B.
Cool. So you're a one-woman show. This is one of the things that I especially wanted to talk about here, because you're definitely not the only one in that situation. I've talked to a lot of other marketing professionals in the last few months that are in similar situations where they're in charge of marketing for these multi-million-dollar companies, and pretty much the buck stops with them. They're in charge of everything. So what advice, words of encouragement, moral support would you have for other people in this situation?
So I think it's an interesting space right now within marketing in general. We're seeing AI take front and center in a lot of ways. And I think that comes with a lot of leadership not understanding marketing as well. Marketing can typically be seen as a discretionary spend in a lot of organizations, especially tech organizations where you have engineers and product kind of on the forefront. So I think what we're seeing is this evolution of marketing roles being cut with the output of new AI tools. AI is becoming front and center. I think AI is going to make a huge, huge differentiator in 5 to 10 years for all of corporate America, whether we want to admit that or not. It's just the speed at which it's developing is crazy. We're not educating ourselves enough to be at the forefront of a lot of this. So I think if you're looking at yourself and you're a one-person marketing team, I look at everything in terms of what is my North Star, what goals am I trying to get to, and then breaking them down into scalable steps. If there's a project that I want to do with product and engineering, and we have this very big North Star of, oh, we're going to do this product launch. How do I break that up into what am I doing this month? What am I doing this quarter? And then how do I celebrate our wins and our successes? And then really making sure that all of my internal stakeholders and external stakeholders are all on the same page. Communication and transparency early and often, I think, is the key to success when you are a one-person team. And then leveraging as many AI tools as you can. And I say this because we're inundated with AI tools. So I think it's also difficult to educate yourself on the right ones to use. And that also takes time and bandwidth away from putting strategy together, doing the execution, putting everything and anything together under the sun. But the more you can educate yourself on the AI tools initially, I think the more you can set yourself up for success later down the road when, say, another AI tool comes out and they're like, oh, we don't need a content marketing person anymore because ChatGPT can write everything, And I think that's where we're heading. While I want to be on the forefront of AI, I am concerned that at some point we're all going to become homogenous brands where the emotion that somebody connects with at the start of a brand perception and the marketing funnel, if we're all using ChatGPT to write everything, they love to say excited and thrilled in every possible LinkedIn post. How do we differentiate ourselves, providing the emotion while using the tools And I think that's where the sweet spot lies, where we all need to figure out, like, as a marketing culture, how we approach that and how do we get leadership to understand that. So I think as a one person marketing team, I also think like whoever is in the same role as me needs to make sure that they're educating their internal stakeholders as much as possible with what marketing provides to the organization. Because I think that education is also key, because marketing can be a very elusive term to a lot of folks, especially if they have not really delved into the marketing expertise areas, because marketing can do content marketing. You can have a graphic designer, you can have growth marketing. All of these are different expert functions. I think marketing tends to get lumped up into this elusive term of making everything look pretty. But at the same point, we are building the pipeline. We are putting the brand in front of the right customers. It is up to us to have that emotional connection with the customer. So I think, combining, this is okay. Sorry, I'm taking a sidestep as well. I think the other problem with AI sometimes is that other people probably in my role that are now down to a 1 or 2 person show, they want to ideate with somebody, and other creatives can give you that juice. So I think the more we become reliant on AI tools, our marketing teams are slimmed down to 1 or a couple person teams, like it's going to be up to us to create the foundation of a community where we ideate with each other and still have each other from a relationship perspective to lean onto. We're all working remotely in a lot of ways. We're looking at, I don't know, the poster board in front of us, trying to think of all these ideas, but it's about the community that we need to build as well. I would heavily lean into anybody that is in a small team to get out of their small team and start networking as much as possible with other people within the space.
It's funny you bring that up, because I actually just joined a small group for that's basically that purpose. Is it's a community of people in marketing, and there's some training that goes along with it, but the primary purpose behind it is to give the people that are sitting at home on their laptops all day, it gives them friendly faces and people to bounce ideas off of and collaborate with. But I wanted to circle back to AI just for a second. You said be sure that people are educating themselves on the tools. Do you have thought leaders or websites or anything like that you could provide as reference for people? Like, how do you when you're choosing AI tools, how do you qualify them?
That's a great question. So, I mean, part of my qualification process ends up being, what budget do I have for these and how do I scale that quickly? A Tofu is one that has just come out on the market within the last several months. We were doing a pilot program with them towards the end of last year. Tofu kind of stands for top of the funnel. And so you can put in your brand voice, you can generate all this content. They'll pump out a blog article for you. They'll put together an email series for you, and it has your whole brand kit. So I would highly suggest checking out Tofu. And their team is absolutely exceptional. I started using Hootsuite for social. I know that tool's been around for a while, but it's been very, very useful for me in terms of, like, I have a million things on my plate. How do I schedule a couple of weeks in advance of what we're doing for social? Plus, it provides the analytics if you're not having like a HubSpot at your fingertips, which I don't. I use Pardot. That's something that we just inherited via Salesforce. Not my favorite tool, but it's something that I have learned to use. Canva is awesome for designing. There's so many great templates in there. You can also update your brand kit. They have this new magic AI tool within it. So if you type in something, it'll spit out an animation or a video for you that you can then quickly adjust and edit. And you can literally press with one button, like you upload all of your brand colors, your templates and everything else, press one button and it changes all of the colors to your brand colors, and make sure that you have all the elements in there. So between Canva, Hootsuite, and Tofu, and ChatGPT, because we just can't get away from ChatGPT at this point, those have been the 4 ones in my marketing wheelhouse to get me through the last few months. I'm always looking at more. I know Jasper AI has been one that's been mentioned numerous times. I've tried the Adobe AI images. I'm not at the point where I need to develop images, and I have found that I don't really like some of these AI images. I just feel like they all look homogenous, which I mentioned previously. I think it's getting better, but I do think there's nothing that can be I don't know, a graphic designer to me has a different eye than an AI tool ever will.
That's good to hear. Coming from the creative side, because everybody is freaking out a little bit right now.
Yeah. And they should be. I mean, it's a time. When COVID started, I was in field marketing and my job was eliminated. So I was at the point where, like, holy crap, COVID's happening. The world is shutting down. Nobody's doing events anymore. And you had to pivot. So I figured out how to pivot then. This is just another type of change that we need to figure out how to pivot as a marketing organization or marketing individuals as creatives. There will be a way to survive. It's just a matter of how we're approaching that and how to adapt to that change.
Yeah, for sure. And I think of it very much like, I mean, there have been several different pivots throughout history, related to technology, even in the last few decades. The one that always comes to mind is the DSLR revolution, that suddenly the barrier to entry for producing cinema quality videos just dropped tremendously. And so there were all of these working professionals who now were threatened with, teenagers with $1,000 to spend. So you mentioned something that AI is creating this homogeneity in our marketing communications. And this is something that I hear everybody is, both in marketing and in the creative production side is concerned about, is that it's just creating this sea of sameness. And by definition, AI can't, like, it's only drawing on existing work. It can only iterate on existing work. Do you have any tips for somebody who's using primarily AI in their marketing and branding? How do you, differentiate yourself?
It's a great question. So I think you're right. There always has to be a person driving it, but the homogenization is something that is definitely concerning, especially as it becomes more and more widespread, available, and people are using it more and more. I think in terms of how you continue to differentiate yourselves when something is assisting you with writing and is assisting 1,000 other companies writing the same blurbs or blogs, it goes back to your internal stakeholders and understanding where their expertise lies and then how to differentiate that. You can't just put generic stuff out there. Like it's a sea of generic everything at this point. And it's like, what makes it cool? And what makes somebody attach themselves to your brand? And I think it's always starting with the why am I doing this? What am I hoping to achieve? What am I hoping that the customer achieves? Or what emotion do I want the customer to feel while interacting? And so I think if we use that as a starting point, as a guideline and focus, like, yes, we have all these tools to make our lives easier and more efficient and more productive in every possible way, but making sure that everything speaks to the emotion behind it and what we're trying to convey. If you're looking at internal stakeholders, marketing needs to rely on the experts that we have internal in our organizations. Get to know your engineering team, get to know your product teams, get to know your sales teams. And I mean that, like, also on an individual level. I feel like that's where I found success, is like, we're all human beings. And it's like, I want the emotional connection with my product lead. I want the emotional connection with my sales lead. I want to understand, like, what ticks them, what emotions they feel behind things, what's going on in their independent lives aside from work, and getting to know them as an individual. So I think we have to take the same approach with AI and say, our customers are still individuals. They're not computers that we're selling to. So what is making them tick? What are the emotions that they're feeling in a day-to-day perspective? And making sure that, like, within all of the messaging, all of the differentiators, all of the graphics that we're putting out there, all of the marketing campaigns, that we're still speaking to that emotion from both the organization level and from the end user level.
That's gold. Very, very well
Thanks.
said. And it speaks to something I wanted to ask you about too, that you addressed earlier. In the tech space, it tends to be very tech and engineer driven. And there's kind of this belief, I'm, I'm oversimplifying here, but if you build it, they will come. if you build a good product, it's kind of like Seth Godin's purple cow thing, that people will they will come if your product is good enough, but that's not entirely true. It does require building those emotional connections, like you were saying. So I'm curious if you have any suggestions or tips for other people who in marketing and tech who they're more on the emotional side. How do they communicate the value of the touchy feely stuff and building the relationships with the customer with all the internal stakeholders there?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I hope I answer this properly as well. So I understand the build it, they will come approach, so much so that I have seen companies fail with that approach. So I think that's not always the correct approach to take, especially like you need market research, you need market intelligence, you need to understand what your customers are doing and how they're feeling. And so while we're all in our little bubbles, I think it's more important than ever right now for the interpersonal relationship. So I'll go back to my point before. It's like if you're wanting to know what your customer is thinking or feeling, get a call scheduled with them. You need to listen to voice of customer. Like sit there or go have a meeting with them, take them out for coffee if you're somewhere nearby, bring them on site, get them to meet the individuals. Because I think what we're experiencing as a culture, aside from marketing, is just this lack of interpersonal skills that we've kind of developed with AI, with computers, with social media, and everything else. We're so comfortable behind our computer. We'll make comments on everything. We all see them trending on social media, but like we've forgotten how to just be people sometimes and what that means to just sit down and have a cup of coffee across from an individual and say, this is the business development piece that we still need to lean in on. So it's like getting out of your own element, shake off the fact that you're behind a computer all day. And maybe you're not comfortable in front of people at this point, and you still have some sort of anxiety left over from COVID as well, because that also changed how we interact with humans. But I do think the business development piece is still just as important as it used to be, if not more important these days, as we start going through the emotional connection. Because frankly, a lot of people have emotional connections with brands because of certain people that they know that work there as well. So you see customers come through the mix that have worked with a certain individual for 10 or 15 years. So it is that business development piece as well that you're looking at. Hopefully that answers.
That's really, yeah, that's well said. And it's something I'm increasingly believing stronger in as well, is that it, there's so much fear right now and just chaos and uncertainty, and the the people that I find myself drawn to are the ones that I just like. I want to have a genuine form a genuine relationship with them. Just that somebody that I enjoy being with, and then hopefully maybe some business comes from that or something. But also the people that I trust, because trust is a very scarce commodity right now. And so I'm really trying to tune into the people that are just giving freely
Mm.
and without expectation, and also try to be that person as well. Because I think that's what we all need right now, is just some genuine connection and to be able to take a breath.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think I am probably more of an extrovert than most people are. So I completely understand that not everybody operates like me, but like just saying, I don't know. I have found just saying hello to a cashier at a grocery store can literally change your entire day. Kindness these days go a long way. Spending time getting to learn somebody or a customer or an internal stakeholder goes a long way. I also lead with the mentality, and I know that I am also not speaking for everybody, but I lead with trust first. And I end up saying, hey, I'm trusting you until you prove me otherwise. And so that's probably not how everybody views the world. I was just reading this book, The Courage to Be Disliked. There were a lot of interesting philosophies within the book, but it was just very interesting. There were like two sets of people, one that view the world as comrades, which I do, or view the world as enemies and are constantly creating that. So I think it's also a perspective on how you're viewing your fellow individual and a neighbor and friend, and how you build those relationships as well.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Just
Yes.
liked. Was there anything there you wanted to add as far as building relationships with internal stakeholders as well?
Yeah. So don't be scared. Look, like I think all of us suffer from imposter syndrome at some point within the day or the game, or just don't be scared. We're all human beings. Executive leadership are humans as well. Like, just because somebody has a title doesn't mean that they're not humans and going through the same process that we're all going through. So one of the things that we have internally is called a donut on Slack, and it lets you set up a 30-minute meeting with somebody that you've never met within the organization. And you don't need that tool to set up a 30-minute meeting. You can do that on your own, but it has helped me see more roundabout faces within the Turntide organization than I would have ever been like approached on a phone call with. Like, there are people that I would never be on a phone call with because we just don't share the same kind of functions together. But like getting to know them on a 30-minute, very informal call and just introducing yourself has gone a superbly long way, I think, in terms of creating that trust and culture and openness.
And that was called the
Yeah,
donut?
I think it's
Like
just
on
like
your
a Slack
channel?
extension. But even if it's not there, like reach out to somebody and say, hey, I just want to meet you and get 30 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. Like, let's get a cup of coffee, virtual cup of coffee together and like get to know each other. And then you just never know how many similarities that you guys can find within just having a quick phone call, and how you guys can help each other out from a business perspective. Even if it's not within the organization you're currently working with, it's just another networking piece that hopefully that relationship can carry you on. Because like, as you get older, it does feel like the universe of people becomes smaller and smaller, and you get to know who you want to lean on and who you want to network with.
And those the people that I respect the most in networking, that tends to be the attitude that they take is just, they take a call with anybody, grab a coffee with anybody, and then just see what sticks. They tend to be very generous.
I think you have to be generous with your time. There's no bad ideas. Everybody is trying to showcase their skill set. And if somebody is also interested in building their passion in a different area, I am a very proponent of giving them the opportunity to build that passion. When I was at Tesla, I started this program. If you are working in one of the stores and you have an interest in marketing, let's put a marketing competition together, because you guys have different ideas than I will ever have. It's getting that group thought together. And so like, let's reward somebody who, we can roll out this program and see that it could create some success. And if it doesn't cause success, that's cool. We quickly shift and we go nimble from there. Sorry. I get very excited
No
about
worries.
people.
People are worth getting excited about.
I agree.
Sure. We are almost at time. Do you have any last words or parting thoughts?
I think parting thoughts, look, like the changes are happening now. Don't be scared of change. Change is always going to be there. I think you have to lean in with positivity. Make sure you're set up for success. Always watch out for yourself too, because like at the end of the day, we got to watch out for ourselves, but we also have to have a community. So I just think we're on the precipice of a massive change within the marketing realm, within corporate America in general. Let's all have each other's backs. Let's work together and not against each other, because ultimately we're humans. We have the emotion. We're building the brands, and these brands need us.
The quote that comes to mind is, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Yep.
And so if anybody is listening to this and wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. So you can reach me on LinkedIn, Jillian Childs. You can find me. You can email me, Jillian.Purcella. It's still under my maiden name at turntide.com, or JillianMorganchilds@gmail.com. And I would be happy to take a call with anybody any time of day. It's always great to meet some other friendly faces in the space, or if you're not in the space, that's fine too. Happy to have a discussion.
Excellent. Well, thanks again so much for coming on, Jillian. This was a lot of fun and very educational.
Thank you, Joe. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today.